Hello everyone. Calling this program Caution Fatigue, and I'll explain that in just a minute, but let's just get started by remembering that this whole pandemic began back in March, and we're taping this on the 6th of August, so it's been March, April, May, June, July, and now the beginning of August. It's a long time to be frustrated, to be tired, to be bored, to be a little bit angry even. These are all emotions that are building up inside of us. And as they keep building up, then something new adds on top of that. We were talking earlier with Tom Moore, the videographer here, it's like a layer cake, and the layers just keep getting bigger and bigger. The problem with that analogy, though, is cake tastes good. This does not taste good at all. None of us like it, none of us want it. So, for those, I should just explain that I live in a community called Charlestown. It's a retirement community of about 2,000 people, and among us are about 1,800 that live in what we call independent living, our own apartments. It's sort of like a community within a community. 6 restaurants, 2 gyms, an Olympic-sized swimming pool indoor, multiple venues for meetings, conferences, games, and so on. A very nice gallery where residents can hang their art. We have our own medical center, our own pharmacy. We really are a community that can just do most everything right here. Then, in March, came the beginning of the pandemic. And the management here was really good about instituting those measures that made some good sense. They started restricting visitors. They closed the restaurants. They brought meals right to our door. They brought packages from FedEx and UPS and the mail right to our door. So in a sense, we didn't have to go out. We could, but we didn't have to go out. Many of us did go out just for a nice walk every day for both our mental health and our physical health, but we didn't have to leave our apartments. The staff was terrific. They really, many of them changed their various jobs. The waiters and waitresses in the restaurants started doing other things. The staff in the gym did concierge type work, but it all worked out. And what happened was, to go back to those dates again, March, April, May, June, and the first part of July, no coronaviruses in independent living. That's pretty exciting. We were all very pleased, very happy, very grateful. And in fact, as I did my own little survey here, just about everybody said the same thing. I feel safe. I feel safer here than I would if I was still on the outside. So it's a compliment to what was done here, everybody pulling together. But then something happened. What happened was, over a period of a few weeks, 5 people tested positive, 5 residents tested positive for coronavirus. In 4 of those cases, these were people who had gone off campus, met with somebody, frequently a friend or a relative, and I'm going to just make this up, but I know Charlie. Charlie's fine. He's my cousin. I know he doesn't go out to bars and hop around. I know he takes care of himself. He couldn't possibly be infected. And besides, he feels good, and he tells me he feels good. So I'm going to go and visit with him. I can take my mask off. I don't have to sit 6 feet away from him. We can have a meal together. Well, problem is, Charlie did have infection, and it didn't become apparent until later. But without any symptoms, he could breathe out that aerosol from his nose and his mouth, and speaking even increases it, so that aerosol got around. It could be inhaled by the other person back in, and what do you know, as I said, 5 people developed infection. The 5th one, by the way, was someone coming into their apartment, which is sort of the opposite, but it's the same principle. So, why does that relate to caution fatigue? Well, it gets at the concept that as we get more and more and more frustrated, more and more even a little bit angry, caution fatigue is something that's been well known after disasters. Everybody comes together, but only for a while. And then if it's a sense that there's no more threat, or not as much of a threat, that that need to be careful goes down. That's caution fatigue. I'm willing to take greater risk, if you will, than before. Now I want to give you a different example of caution fatigue, and it's with my wife's watercolors. We were out for a walk not too long ago in the historic area of the campus here, and just looking straight ahead were these big, beautiful trees, and above the trees was this huge cloud like this, and then above that was a beautiful blue sky. She said, I gotta paint that. So she did. And I'll show it to you here. You see the sky, the cloud, the trees. It was just, that beautiful day. It couldn't be nicer. And I'll put this back down so I can use my hands a bit. Things are going well. Like many artists, she just wanted to do two of them. One a little different style. And she actually started them both at the same time. And the second one was coming along. And I would just add on, when she does these, for her it's often what she thinks of as a problem, trying to figure out how should things go together. It's also for her a way to find peace. It's just peaceful to put things together and do it in a painting. But what were we hearing? We were hearing that the number of cases here in Maryland were going up. And of course, we're hearing about the protests, the violence, and then we hear about as a hurricane coming, and you would think that it was a Category 5 hurricane was on the way. Not to say that it wasn't important to a lot of people. But the thing that kind of added to the top of it all, besides for our masks, besides for social distancing, besides for everything else over 5 months, was, as some of you heard me say before, our older grandson was coming to St. John's College in Annapolis. Well, he still will be coming, but he's going to be coming by Zoom instead of in person. And we just heard that last Friday, just a few days ago. That was just enough to push her over the edge with caution fatigue. So no longer was there caution, and instead, this painting. And you can see, I shouldn't try and interpret it for you. I'll just give you some of my interpretation. I see in the red there, virus all over the place. I see up in here, almost an evil face, something evil that wants to get toward us. I won't say anything more about it, but look at the two. They really say a different story, and yet it was based on the same picture, the same view that we had on a walk on a nice day. But the second one came out the way it did because of this overwhelming frustration that just boiled up with one last thing on top of it. In this case, the fact that our grandson, who was going to come just 5 days from now, was told, no, you're staying home in California. You'll do your first year of college by Zoom. So, what can we do about caution fatigue? There are some basics. None of them are a surprise. The first one, of course, is to recognize you've got it. Talk about it. Talk about it to your friends. Talk about it to your spouse. Talk about it to your family. Talk about it to anybody. But it's important to kind of let it out. We need to talk about these things. If you hold it back in, it only gets worse. So talk about it. Second thing is, and it sort of relates to the first one, is we're human. We need social interaction. So again, it's the same thing. Set up a Zoom call, a phone call, emails, a letter even, the old-fashioned way. But have interaction with other people. It's just really critically important. And then remember that the other kind of caution fatigue is to be less cautious about what we eat. And that macaroni and cheese, that's my comfort food. Maybe I shouldn't have it, or maybe just a little bit. That chocolate layer cake I was talking about before. A little bit, maybe, but did you usually have dessert every day of the week, or maybe it was just on Saturday night? Well, now it's every day. It's not 1 scoop of ice cream, it's 2 scoops of ice cream. And so it goes. So we're not eating as healthy, or may not be. Other caution fatigue problem is exercise. It's harder to do exercise, but it's really very important. If at a minimum, just get out for a walk every day. Do some other things as well, but that's a good start. we need a good night's sleep. And there's some things we can do about that, and I'm going to talk about it in some other programs, both with regard to exercise and sleep. But briefly, just stick to a schedule. Don't watch something excitatory or look at Facebook exciting things just before bed. Have a very dark room, have a very quiet room, and that's a good start. Also, be sure all the lights are out. Turn your smartphone off, turn the TV off. Best not to have a TV in the bedroom anyway. And then stress. This is all about stress. So if you do the things I just talked about, that'll help your stress, but then add in some other things. Meditation, yoga, just a few deep breaths. You can't see me really doing it here, but just a few deep breaths. The in a little bit less long than the out. The out should be a little bit longer. That will go to your brain. What's happening here goes to your brain. It sends a message back to sort of let things settle down. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and just pay attention to this concept of caution fatigue. You probably have it. You don't want it because you've gone all this time. This is not the time to make, I don't want to call it a mistake, but to do something that leads you to getting the infection. Thanks.